for another edition of the Awesemo MMA Strategy Show, of course, right here at Awesemo.com. Of course, as always, I am joined by the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr., as we're here to get you ready for Saturday's UFC 259. As we sit here right now, we've got 15 fights. So, Pete, true, false, we'll have 15 fights on Saturday night.
I'm going true, man. I'm optimistic. I think that finally we're going to come out unscathed here. I mean, you talk about fight card of the year. I'm so impressed with this card. I'm so pumped. From top to bottom, you're talking about a stacked fight card.
Yeah, it's a great fight card, top to bottom, as you mentioned there. 3 title fights. We're going to break all this one down for you. Of course, this show is sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. Go over to monkeyknifefight.com, sign up, and use the promo code Awesemo, and you'll get an instant first match deposit bonus up to $50. Of course, they are a player props-based contest. Whether you want to play the UFC, NBA, PGA, esports, soccer, Monkey Knife Fight has it all. So once again, use that promo code Awesemo to get an instant first match deposit up to $50. Pete, let's get right into it. Main event, Jan Błachowicz defending the UFC light heavyweight title. The first time he's making his title defense, as he is being challenged by the middleweight champion, Israel Adesanya, moving up to 205 pounds. Of course, we'll see tomorrow how much exactly Israel does weigh in at. That's going to be kind of part of it. I was watching that interview you did with Ariel Helwani where he talked about maybe he's going to be around 195-ish pounds. So we'll see what he does go in there. I mean, I think, Pete, the way this one break it down, and it's got to be, power versus speed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about Israel Adesanya trying to do the unthinkable, go up a weight class. A lot of middleweights have struggled at light heavyweight, but I do think that Israel Adesanya has a nice style to have some success there. Coming in against Jan Błachowicz, who definitely has the power advantage in this matchup, has really turned his career around. Early on in the UFC, struggled a lot, but then started to find himself, and it took a little bit. He was like a late bloomer, but I mean, now he's the champ. I mean, excellent performance. Nice knockout against Luke Rockhold, Jacare Souza, and then a beautiful performance against Dominic Reyes. He's definitely the more powerful guy here, the bigger guy. Brings in a grappling background as well that I would love to see him test Izzy's takedown defense and also his ground game, because I think that's a nice path to victory here. But Adesanya on the outside, longer guy, definitely the more technical, and could outpoint Błachowicz from the outside and just pick him apart.
Yeah, I mean, I do like Israel in the spot. I think his speed, his technique will be the key to him. But I mean, look, it's, you can't deny the Polish power that Jan Błachowicz has. And the crazy note about Jan is when you look at this on Saturday, I believe this will now be the 10th in his last 12 fights that he's been the betting underdog, which is a crazy number. And this is a guy that, if I would have told you in 2017 that he was going to be the UFC light heavyweight champion 2021, you would have said, Jason, you're crazy. I mean, the career resurgence that this guy has had, where he had lost, 4 out of 5, one of those losses was against Pat Cummings, and then of course this career resurgence that he has. But I do want to mention a stat that I sent over to Pete earlier today about the UFC in 2021. Betting favorites, their records is 46-29-1 with 2 pick'ems, 32 finishes, 46 decisions. So we're talking about nearly 40% of underdogs are coming in terms of this one. And I mean, look, I think I'll have some exposure to Jan Błachowicz, just because of it's a great value play. But I do think the right side is to take the Israel Adesanya side.
Yeah, I mean, I think the card, with 15 fights, you have to prioritize certain fights. And we will discuss on which title fights we feel that are crucial to your lineups. Of the 3 title fights, I definitely think that Błachowicz has a great chance to pull the upset here. I mean, he's done it before. It's the argument, would you rather be lucky or good? I think he's a little bit of both. I know that he is talented. I think that he's kind of he got a title shot at the right time. If he's able to clinch up with Izzy and implement his wrestling and a strong BJJ background, I'm curious to see how that goes. But I do favor Israel Adesanya here at 9,200. I just worry about the overall score and if he doesn't get the finish, because I know that Jan does have a good chin, has been finished in the past, but I favor Izzy. I like him on the outside. I just think that he can put it all together, have a complete performance, but don't avoid Błachowicz in some of your lineups. Definitely sprinkle him in.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the betting odds at under 2.5 rounds plus 125 is definitely a line that does stick out to me. I don't think this fight goes 25 minutes. I think someone's going to eventually get a finish, but I do think that this is going to be a fight that people are going to be looking at in terms of ownership. Of course, speaking of ownership, that is a free content right now over at awesemo.com. Ownership projections, which is a great tool that we have over at the site to help you build those lineups. So you got to take advantage when it is free over there on the site. Of course, if you ever miss any of our shows, they are available on the Awesemo Podcast Network. Just go to awesemo.com/podcast. Maybe you can't be in here on a Thursday night when me and Pete are doing the strategy show. All you got to do is subscribe to the Awesemo MMA podcast so you can get that, so you can listen to us on your way to work on Friday morning. So, and of course, and one of the great things that we do have going on with our podcast channel is leave a 5-star review on any of our podcast channels. Leave your Twitter handle or email address, and you'll be eligible to win a free week of Awesemo Plus Platinum. One winner will be awarded every Friday, and reviews will be eligible to win for up to 1 year. So good luck. So check out there. You see it there on the screen. The tower has it up there. I always go back. I listen to our shows after the fact because sometimes I wonder, did I maybe miss something that Pete did say there? But Pete, let's move on to the co-main event. It is Amanda Nunes versus Megan Anderson. I guess just simply on this one, what is the path for Megan Anderson to potentially pull off the biggest upset in UFC title history?
Yeah, so I mean, of the 3 title fights, Megan Anderson is obviously my least favorite underdog. I really don't. I'm probably not going to have a lineup with her, even though it's, any given day, a fighter can have an off day. I think the 3 narratives that you could bring up for Megan Anderson and kind of make a case for her are the size of her. Like, she's a pretty tall fighter for the division, so she's going to have the height and reach advantage over Amanda Nunes. I don't think it's going to matter, but you can make that case. You can make the case that she has James Krause in her corner, who, under the tutelage of James Krause, maybe he developed an excellent game plan. You have seen what he's done to a lot of fighters under his stable. And then the third thing that you can bring up and make a case for is Amanda Nunes is now a parent, and perhaps she's being somewhat distracted, and not focused as she has been in the past. I mean, we're grasping for straws right here, Jason. I really think that Amanda Nunes, it's a complete package. She's fought the who's who of the division. She can beat you in any facet of the game. Excellent striking, excellent wrestling, excellent jiu-jitsu. I mean, you and I were talking pre-show, and you brought up about how Holly Holmes out wrestling her, and I think that's an interesting take, because like, if Holly Holmes giving you problems via grappling and wrestling, I think Amanda Nunes is just a complete problem, and we should see a dominant performance from Amanda Nunes. Despite the heavy price tag, I'm going to have several lineups with 9,600 Nunes in my lineup.
Several?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm scared to say I might have like 80% Amanda Nunes.
The only thing, right, is like, obviously if you get like a third round and it's a boring first couple and she's able to stuff some takedowns or whatnot, but I don't see how Megan Anderson could really survive 5. Felicia Spencer was tough enough, but I foresee 9,600, I think it's warranted.
All right, true, false. Amanda Nunes will get at least 4 takedowns. Now, that is a number that Holly Holm got against Megan Anderson.
I don't think she needs that much, to be honest. I think she just needs a couple, and she's so talented with, getting finishes via strikes and, her submission ability. I think she can pull it off with less, but 4 would not surprise me at all. If it goes the distance, I definitely expect she's getting more than that.
I mentioned a question from Miles in the chat. He says, outside of ownership, is Anderson playable on FanDuel at $13?
I mean, like, I don't know. I don't want to say like you're throwing your money away by betting on Megan Anderson, because stranger things have happened in the fight game, right? Like, how many people counted out a lot of women bouts? Let's think of biggest upset, Holly Holm against Ronda Rousey. A lot of people thought she was going to get destroyed, even people in her camp. And, maybe James Krause came up with a great game plan, or, Amanda Nunes has an off night, runs into a shot, but really, like, that's like a 2% chance, 5% chance that happens. So I can't recommend playing her.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you said they fight 10 times. Could Megan Anderson win 2 times?
If they fight 10 times? No. If they fight 100 times, I think Megan Anderson could win 2 times.
Yeah, it's just like for me, Megan is just she's got to keep the distance. She's going to have to stop the takedown. I think Amanda can win this fight no matter where it goes. Now, I think there's no doubt the easiest path to victory for her is taking this round. By the way, I'll mention I'll speak with Jason Witt, who fights later on this month, trains at Glory under James Krause. I was asking, I was like, "Hey, are you in Vegas already?" He's like, "No." He goes, "I'm still in Missouri." And he was telling me that because of the amount of fighters that Glory has fighting all these UFC cards over the past couple weeks, this coming weeks, that James Krause will only be home about 8 to 9 days over the next 30 days.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have, Jason. It means you have an invested coach. It means you have a successful team. I mean, there comes a day when you're not getting out to Vegas that often, or you're not having fighters reach that platform so often. So, he definitely has a great thing going. And I mean, we've been talking about James Krause for, I think, like 3 years now. And he's really, broke onto the scene this year.
Yeah, it's great to see that he is finally getting the respect that he is has shown over the past couple of years. Let's move on to the third title fight. That'll be the bantamweight title fight. Peter Yan defending the bantamweight title, his first title defense, taking on Aljamain Sterling. Of course, this fight has been it's taken a while for us to get to this one, and this was a fight that we got a lot of questions about. And first off, I'm going to mention this just from Hunter because I think it's a great way to start off and talk about breaking down this fight, where he had asked can Pete engage in talking about calf kicks and the proper defense to them?
Yeah, I mean, calf kicks right now, nobody has an answer for them. It's don't get hit by them, right? That's the most obvious thing. Try to fade back with your hips so that your leg is not there. Turn your shin more outwards than you would for a thigh kick. Like a lot of people just pick their knee straight up, and they're so lazy with it that it touches their shin and their knee. And it, when they're not getting kicked in the calf, that's an acceptable defense. But when somebody's really trying to wrap around, you have to truly commit to turning your shin out. I think another defensive thing that people don't talk about a lot is switching stances, right? Like if you look at that Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, the reason Conor McGregor was so caught off guard from the calf kick is because he hasn't fought too many southpaws that can actually go to the outside of his lead leg. So anytime somebody's starting to calf kick you a lot, give them a different look. Make them have to kick your other leg now, which is not their dominant leg. It's so easy to say that you need to do this and do that. It's in the heat of the moment, but threaten with a takedown off of kicks too. Like, I mean, you want to, like with Aljamain Sterling, right? He wants Peter Yan to really respect his wrestling. So anytime that he throws a kick, if it's even lazy or whatnot, act like you're trying to go for that double leg, that blast double right off that kick, or throw a right hand down the middle. I mean, answer them with some type of offensive movement as well. We could sit here and I could break this down all day long, and they both enjoy kicking quite a bit. And Sterling has an unorthodox striking about him. But, I mean, what's really going to get him to the top of the divisions, and especially this division, is going to be just, a phenomenal grappling and phenomenal wrestling and pressure and just pace. So if Peter Yan cannot defend the takedown, we're talking about a very interesting underdog here in Aljamain Sterling at 7,800.
And if Peter Yan can defend the takedown, that's where I think he becomes a very interesting play over on FanDuel. Which this came in from Slack, where it said the most exciting fight of the night, in my opinion, is Yan versus Sterling fight. Do either of you, from a DFS optimal lineup, see a value in having one of these fighters on your card, with Yan a slight favorite, 53.49% win probability? Do they just cancel each other out, or maybe are you recommending a stack card with both? With 15 fights, I'm not going to be stacking any fights. I think this is a coin flip fight for me. I think it'd be better off for this to be the 8,100 fight than Casey Kenney and Dominic Cruz. I think it's a very close fight. I will tell you this: when you talk to a lot of fighters, Pete, a lot of them are siding with Aljamain Sterling. They all think it's Aljo's fight. I think one of the things about Peter Yan is I think this is by far Peter Yan's toughest fight that he's had to date.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of people are backing Aljamain Sterling, because, he brings that wrestling approach. And to be honest, a lot of United States fans and United States fighters will always side with the wrestler because they're able to dictate where the fight takes place. That's a great base for a lot of fighters to have, where they can really mix things up. You want to keep it standing, they keep it standing. They decide to take it to the mat, they can take it to the mat. I do think that Peter Yan is extremely talented. And I'm actually favoring Peter Yan in this spot. I just think like the accumulation of shots, his high output, he does have good takedown defense. And I think that he's going to be able to have a nice performance here. But as far as the 3 title fights, like Aljamain Sterling's one of my favorite. I prefer him over Jan Blachowicz. He's my favorite underdog of the title fights. Like I'm going to have plenty of Aljamain Sterling. I think that you're talking about scrambles and you go back and you look at the Sandhagen fight that Sterling had. You know, he went down, he took him down and submitted him pretty quickly. And we could see the same thing, right? Like if somebody takes your back, it's over. And especially a guy like Sterling. I do favor Peter Yan. I favor the volume, the striking, the skills. I think it's his fight, and I think he's going to be a champ for a while.
Is there a path to victory for Sterling if he can't get the takedown?
I mean, like he's good enough on the feet, right? Like he is good enough on the feet. I just think like he's going to have to really prove that he has a great chin. And outside of that Marlon Moraes fight, he does have a good chin. He does leave it up in the air, throws a lot of kicks first, so a lot of his attacks start with kicks. He's nowhere as crisp as Peter Yan. And I do think that Peter Yan's able to threaten in different ways, switch stances, box, throw knees, throw chopping low kicks. And I do think that Peter Yan, from a striking standpoint, I could see him getting a finish. I really can, like a late accumulation of shots. But grappling-wise, like you said, it's a coin toss, man. Like really is. And I'm going to have plenty of Aljamain Sterling.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Of course, when you want to get some of our great premium tools and content we have over at Awesemo.com, you got to sign up for an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. And if you just want a MMA weekly pass, you can get that for $8.95. The top fighter tool, our pro plays, the top fighter projections we have up there. So you got to check that out over at Awesemo.com. Of course, be sure to sign up Awesemo.com/join or right there on the main page. There you see it right there on the screen where you can sign up for your Awesemo Plus membership. It's a great tool that we have over there. It's a reason Alex Awesemo Baker is the #1 DFS player in the world. Move on to a lightweight matchup that I love this fight matchup between Islam Makhachev and Drew Dober. As I think about this fight, to me, it just comes down to, can Drew Dober stay off his back?
Yeah, I think that Drew Dober is going to be a very popular punt play, and for good reason. He has excellent hands, excellent power. The lone blemish in Islam Makhachev's career has been a knockout defeat. So a guy like Drew Dober, who over the years has really grown into himself and has definitely evolved into a better fighter. I mean, you talk about team elevation, a strong team, well prepared. He definitely can take advantage of Islam Makhachev, but I do favor Islam Makhachev. I think that his grappling, his wrestling is a little too strong. Granted, it's been a while since we've seen him in the cage. He can compete on the feet, but I don't want him to do that. I want him to take down Drew Dober like immediately, start to really implement takedowns. Dober defends well early, but he does get taken down and has been submitted in the past. And I actually can see that happening in this bout. I think that Islam Makhachev's just so strong, so talented, so technical in the grappling department that he can survive on the feet as long as he avoids the big shot and then really dominate on the ground. So I like Islam Makhachev here quite a bit at 9,400, favoring him let's say in the matchup 80% of the time. 20% of the time, I do think that Drew Dober can come through and get a knockout, and he's going to be a popular punt play. I'll have plenty of Drew Dober, but obviously I'm siding with Makhachev.
You have to note that Makhachev hasn't fought since 2019. I think that's something to kind of think about. Yes. Could we see a little bit of cage rust there or not? But to me, Islam is definitely the guy to go with here, and there's a reason that he's over 3.5-1 betting favorite in that. Let's move on to a light heavyweight matchup. Alexander Rakic taking on Thiago Santos. Looking at the salaries for this one, you got 8,600 for Rakic, 7,600 for Santos. $19 for Rakic on FanDuel, $11 for Santos. Then over on SuperDraft, 1.3 times for Rakic, 1.45 times for Thiago Santos. I feel like this is a fight in terms of GPPs that you're likely going to have the winner in this one to be optimal. There was a question that we got on Twitter that I want to mention. It was in relation to Rakic potentially going the takedown route, where it says, ask if we could cover Santos's ability to keep getting up if taken down by Rakic, as well as the proper defense to this. That really is the key, because we saw it there in the Glover fight. But even though when he was getting taken down with Glover, he would get back up and he still had that power. I mean, you got to imagine, the Rakic corner, that's got to be part of this game plan, is let's not get into a firefight with Thiago Santos and those hammers that he has.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about two big guys right here, and Alexander Rakic is a great striker, exceptional athlete, and I think a name to circle in the division. Now, Thiago Santos, there's going to be a lot of recency bias in this bout. Now, we have to look at it from, in that type of standpoint, from a DFS standpoint, that Thiago Santos could be the ultimate leverage play here because of everybody getting burned from him against Glover Teixeira. A lot of people were hot and heavy on him in that matchup. He burned a lot of people. People don't want to go back to that well, but it's a different fight. It really is. And I don't know if this is a fight that I will be prioritizing in my lineups. I feel a little differently than you do. I think it's going to be an action-packed bout, but I can see these guys going tit for tat and being a little cautious, and maybe it resulting in an underwhelming fantasy score. But I do think that Rakic should look to mix up some takedowns, because we have seen Thiago Santos get outclassed on the mat, get finished on the mat, kind of make some like beginner mistakes on the mat, even though he does have a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background. But I am okay with putting Thiago Santos in my lineups. Like, I have a slight lean to Thiago Santos. I think this is a huge step up in competition for Alexander Rakic. And you talk about Thiago Santos, who, arguably beat John Jones. And I know that he has two horrible knees, and in his previous bout was coming off of major surgeries. So perhaps that's why he had a bad performance, but he's a threat on the feet. He rocks almost every fighter that he's in there with. Mm-hmm. And that he's just susceptible to takedowns and getting kind of out grappled. So I'm okay with targeting Thiago Santos, because I know that a lot of people aren't going to be on him. I like to get different, and getting different on a 15-fight slate is how you're going to make the optimal lineup.
Especially over on FanDuel, you look at $11 for Thiago Santos. That's a number that really sticks out to you, because you imagine if Thiago wins this fight, the likelihood is he's going to win by finish at some point. Mm-hmm. But Rakic on the other side, he could rack up some points with takedowns, control time, and strikes on the ground. So I think that's something to pay attention to there. And of course, there you see the ownership projection we have there on Thiago Santos. Of course, you can head over to Awesemo.com right now. Free content of the day is our ownership projection. So you definitely got to check that out. Let's move on to a bantamweight matchup that's just going to be the feature prelim on ESPN, and that'll be Dominick Cruz versus Casey Kenney. And I will tell you, so I talked with Casey, I guess a month and a half ago, before he really made a lot of news. I think we all know what that news was. And I was surprised when I looked at the odds over at OddsShopper at Awesemo.com to see that Dom Cruz is a betting underdog.
Yeah. Oh, how the mighty have fallen, right? I mean, we talk about Dominick Cruz, arguably the best bantamweight of all time, wins over everybody, dominance in the WEC, great fights in the UFC as well, coming back off of major injuries and major surgeries, and then, coming back in the cage, having great wins, and then getting stopped by Henry Cejudo. It's a case of, does this ring rust or cage rust really affect Dominick Cruz at all? Or does he pull off the unthinkable again and kind of just come in like no problem at all, and take out a guy who's really taken advantage of the pandemic and has been in the cage so often? I mean, Casey Kenney's got to be in the cage like 4 or 5 times since Dom Cruz's last fight.
Yeah, no, Casey's a guy that he loves taking short notice fights. He mentioned to me that when he got the text from his manager, Jason House, his first initial reaction was to make sure that, hey, you're texting the right person, right? But then his other thought was like, okay, it's Dom Cruz. I don't like to wait that long, but I'll wait because it's Dom Cruz, because this is a fight that could elevate Casey Kenney up into it. And earlier in the week, I was looking at this fight going, okay, you know what? You got to hit this one. But then as I've really thought about this matchup, I don't know if it ends up being optimal because of what I think this fight's going to be. I think it's going to be a 15-minute fight that primarily plays out on the feet. And when you look at this new DraftKings scoring system, I just don't know if this fight has the potential to be an optimal type fight.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the only thing that would make it really optimal is based on the price, right? It's kind of in that nice 8,100 range for each guy. And, Dom Cruz, his style in general, he depends a lot on footwork, movement, and evasiveness. Now, all three of those can result in, low totals for his opponent and also low totals for himself because he's so worried about being tricky and mixing things up that it doesn't result in high, significant strikes or in his opponent hitting him a lot. But you did see that Henry Cejudo invested in leg kicks and then invested in a kick where Dominic Cruz ran into the knee and was rocked, fell backwards, hit with a bunch of unanswered shots. Questionable stoppage. I've seen plenty worse, but I mean, he was trying to get back to his feet. And however you feel about that stoppage, you have to take that damage into consideration and his age and the injuries. You have to take all that into consideration, right? Now, it's a fight that I'm not prioritizing really for my lineups because of the Matador-esque style of Dominic Cruz, right? Like what happens if Casey Kenney's out there trying to kill him and he's swinging and missing a lot? He's unable to land. Maybe you mentioned it to me. He gets frustrated. Like those are all possible situations. And how many times have we seen Dominic Cruz do that to everybody in the division? And now you can also talk about Dominic Cruz being able to dictate where the fight goes. Casey Kenney's an excellent wrestler, but I do believe Dominic Cruz is the better wrestler here. And that's kind of where he catches his opponents is where they're caught off guard. He takes them right down. So I'll have shares of both guys, but I'm really not prioritizing if any, like I do find it hard to believe that Dom Cruz comes back in here and just goes right through Casey Kenney. I think that Cruz can win the fight, but maybe it's like underwhelming and it's just on the scorecards.
Yeah, I will tell you, looking at the ownership projections over here, I was actually surprised to see how low Dom Cruz is at 10%. I would have thought on FanDuel it'd be a little bit more just because he's only $14 over on FanDuel. Yeah. Casey Kenney at $17. I just think when you look in that $17, $16 range, 18, there's just better values over on FanDuel. And looking at Super Draft, I if you think Dom Cruz can win by finish, that 2.2 times multiplier in the champion spot does kind of stick out to you. But I think that fight's got 15-minute decision, but really looking forward to that one. Next up, we got Song Yadong taking on Kyler Phillips, 8,800 for Song Yadong, 7,400 for Kyler Phillips. And, last week we talked about, those fighters under 8,000 that we were looking at. We were looking at Kevin Croom. That went horrible for us.
Oh, God.
And Kyler Phillips seems to be the guy this week that I'm really looking at of that under 8,000 to potentially pull off the upset.
Yeah, Kevin Croom showed the guy I thought he was last time. You know what I mean? Like I was wrong in his fight against Roosevelt Roberts because I thought that Kevin Croom was showing up and clearly it was still there. And man, that was not a good performance. But as far as this card, I will say that, Kyler Phillips is an interesting target. He definitely is. 7,400 for a guy going up against, Song Yadong, who is an excellent striker, good boxer, has good skill sets, but does allow his opponents to kind of have competitive moments in there and has some questionable wins in the division. If you really go back and you look, you think about the Marlon Vera fight, you think about the Cody Stamann fight, like, I do think that maybe he's a little overblown with the 8,800. I think it's a closer fight than what the salaries say. I think Kyler Phillips is, well-rounded, good striker, sneaky ground game. And I think that's the X factor in this situation, right? Like if he's able to take Song Yadong, down, can he work towards a submission victory? I think he can. And I think his grappling and his jiu-jitsu especially is pretty strong. So I do like the kicking game of Kyler Phillips. He's a guy under that 8K that I am targeting. I do agree with you there. I'm fine with it. I think that he could get a victory. It's just, can he finish Song Yadong or can he really put together an incredible performance? There are definitely some other underdogs that can have those finishing scores, those 100-point scores. But I will have plenty of Kyler Phillips. And Song Yadong is kind of a guy that I'm relatively uninterested in.
Appreciate everyone that's here live on a Thursday, or if you're listening to this after the fact on the Awesemo Podcast Network or YouTube. If you are watching us on YouTube, course, I really would appreciate that subscribe button to Awesemo. We have shows all the time here. And of course, be sure to hit that thumbs up video, hit that notification bell so you know when a show is live here on the channel. Coming up after us tonight will be the NBA late slate live before lock show. So stick tuned here to Awesemo. If you're not subscribed to the channel, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Next up, we got Joseph Benavidez taking on Askarov. Joe B returning after another failed attempt to become the UFC flyweight champion here. And, it was interesting hearing him talk a little bit this week where, he said there were other fights that were presented to him. But at that time, just the names that just didn't intrigue him. But he wanted to get back in there with the top contender. This is Askarov. And this is another fight that I kind of look at from a GPP perspective. I just don't know. Like, if I was going to say, what's the odds this one is optimal? I might say like 20%.
Yeah, I'd probably say a little bit under that. I mean, you talk about Askarov, undefeated fighter, but does have a draw on his resume. Coming into the UFC, had a ton of hype, excellent grappler, really strong wrestler, can compete on the feet. He's fine on the feet. But now he's going up against Joseph Benavidez, who is arguably his toughest test to date. And I will say that Joseph Benavidez, if you only know him from his previous 2 fights, that is like so disrespectful because his entire body of work from the WEC to the UFC is pretty remarkable. He is a staple in the bantamweight, but also the flyweight division. He's just done so much for the sport, for the lighter weight classes. And, he's a complete game. Like, he has good striking, very good hands, really good wrestling, and sneaky submissions, especially his guillotine choke. So I do think that Joseph Benavidez, maybe the disrespect has gone a little too far, but I can't blame people for worrying about the damage that he accumulated in those Davis and Figueiredo fights, right? Like, whether it was a headbutt and then 2 finishes, we're talking, whatever you want to think. He got outclassed twice, but Davis and Figueiredo can probably do that to the entire division. He's just so incredible. It's where is Joseph Benavidez at in his career? I do think that the game plan and the style of Askarov, he's used to being the better scrambler, and he's used to being a guy that ends up on top. I can actually see him getting reversed. I can see him getting thrown, and I can see him being put into some bad spots by Joseph Benavidez. I never thought I would be really like backing Joseph Benavidez, but I also thought that Benavidez could have had some moments against Davis and Figueiredo. And maybe I got my WEC blinders on and I'm ignoring the undefeated record of Askarov. But I like Joseph Benavidez to pull the upset here. I really do. Even though it's probably a closely contested bout, I'll lean Benavidez.
Yeah, it's to me, it's a coin flip fight. We'll go over our straight up fight picks right at the end of the show. Of course, you've probably seen the Awesemo avatar all over DFS leaderboards. Well, that's for a very good reason. And you can rock our avatar on your DFS profile, and you'll win a free month of Awesemo Plus when you place within the top 3 in any GPP of 5,000 plus entries. So head over to awesemo.com/announcement/avatar. Or simply Google search Awesemo Avatar for instructions on how to download the image. Always love seeing those Awesemo avatars when I'm going there and looking in there. You see it right there on the screen of how you can get that avatar and put it right there on your profile on your favorite DFS platform. Moving on, we got another matchup. We got Rogerio Bontorin taking on Kai Kara France. This is another one I look at and just say, God, is this a how much exposure should we have on this fight in a GPP?
You're a hater with the lighter weight classes, but you're not wrong though. Like I don't blame you at all. And generally, like in the grand scheme of things, lighter weight classes don't perform in like with crazy numbers for DFS. Yes, they are more active, there are more scrambles, but now we're talking about advances being gone, which is a difference maker. We're talking about how striking matches aren't really valued the same, and it's a slight decrease towards striking output. I think that Kai Kara France is in an interesting spot here. Rogerio Bontorin is a very talented fighter, well-rounded fighter, but is going to be behind in the striking. Like Kai Kara France, coming from City Kickboxing, I love that gym. That gym has been hot forever. City Kickboxing is such a strong gym. They do something right. I mean, Coach Eugene's really got, it all down, whether it's their mental, whatever they prepare, even physically, they just seemed to be like in great shape and ready to go. Kai Kara France had moments in that Brandon Royval fight, And it's somewhat of a similar matchup because Bontorin is going to look to take him to the mat. He should, because that's his path to victory. He's exceptional in the grappling and jiu-jitsu department, and I think that's where he could work towards a finish. Like Bontorin submitting Kai Kara-France really wouldn't surprise me. I just think that Kai Kara-France probably keeps it on the feet with his good takedown defense, and I think that he's able to pick apart his foe. He lands at nearly double on the feet, 5.16 significant strikes compared to Bontorin's 2.3, 90% takedown defensive rating. I just think it's going the distance, though. So you're right on cue with saying that it's going to be probably a fight you don't have to prioritize, but crazier things have happened. I like Kai Kara-France. He has some pretty significant power for the division.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Kai Kara-France in that one as well. Then we got Tim Elliott taking on Jordan Espinosa. And I mentioned this about Tim Elliott to you before the show, is how much does this new DraftKings scoring system potentially hurt Tim Elliott? Because he's a guy that when he gets on the ground, there's so much advancing going on. So you're losing out on those points. But also, can you trust Tim Elliott?
No, you can't. And he's definitely on my don't trust list. But you have to recommend Tim Elliott because he can go out there and break the slate. He's done it before. Like his pace is remarkable. His, ability to chain takedowns and just have a relentless motor is the reason why he's in consideration in this matchup. I mean, it's an extremely volatile fight, right? Let's be clear about that. Tim Elliott is going to go bananas from the bell, and he's going to go out there wild. I hope that James Krause, under his tutelage, he's kind of been able to calm him down. We saw Kevin Croom not have the best performance under James Krause. But then you think about Derek Minner, who was a maniac, was able to kind of calm down and settle into the fight. And I think that if Tim Elliott does that, he could win the fight. But, I mean, the speed advantage for Espinosa, like he has good hands. The tricky thing about this situation, right? Like you have Tim Elliott training with James Krause, who's around Kevin Croom, who Kevin Croom used to be in the New Mexico area and is a really good friend of Jordan Espinosa. So how does that dynamic work? You know what I mean? Like, is he telling one guy secrets? I don't know. We'll have to see. But I do think that Tim Elliott at 8,200, close your eyes, hope for the best. I will be targeting this fight more so than probably, let's say, the Askarov, Benavidez, and maybe the Kenney Cruz fight, just because I feel like it's going to go one way or another. Tim Elliott's going to walk into a punch or walk into a submission, or he's going to go out there and take him down like he's playing with a wrestling dummy. So we'll have to see. I am favoring Elliott.
I think a concern maybe you have with Tim Elliott is if he works so hard in that first round looking for, those takedowns, potentially we saw him wear it down. We saw that happen to him. Jordan Espinosa could be a really intriguing play over on FanDuel, in terms of those takedown defenses. So I think that's something to pay attention to there. Next up, we'll move over. We got Kenney Nzechukwu taking on Carlos Ulberg. Ulberg is the favorite in this one. Break it down for us.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Ulberg coming from City Kickboxing, right? Like, I can kind of just say that, and you already know where I'm going to go with the entire thing. Like, I do think that Ulberg is a fantastic striker, but he is green in regards to MMA, right? He's only 3-0, but he does have some kickboxing experience as well. Kenney Nzechukwu, he's good. He's a big guy for the division, 6'5", 83-inch reach. So he has a 6-inch reach advantage in the fight. But I think, like, from a skills standpoint, I don't think that he's quite as skilled as Ulberg here. I mean, you hear Israel Adesanya kind of pumping up Ulberg and saying so much in the media and really having tons of interviews talking about how he struggles going up against Ulberg in the training room and how he doesn't want to spar him a lot because Ulberg's he's there. He's in your face. He's so talented. He's able to push the pace, hit you hard. He kicks hard. He says nobody wants to hold pads for him. I'm favoring Ulberg quite a bit, and I think we could be looking at a finish here. He is green in regards to MMA. What I mean by that is if Kenney Nzechukwu is working takedowns and he's able to put him on his back, you could definitely see his game and his holes exploited here. But I don't really foresee that happening. Nzechukwu likes to keep it on the feet as well. I just think it's going to be at a speed disadvantage, a technical disadvantage, and even a power disadvantage, and Ulberg should get a nice victory here.
Samuel, appreciate you there in Super Chat. We will get to your questions right at the end of the show. Move on. We got Sean Brady versus Jake Matthews. Sean Brady, just over a 2-1 betting favorite in this one. This is one of those ones. I mean, Sean Brady, I had a chance to call one of his fights when he took on Colton Smith for Shogun Fights down in Miami. I mean, this guy he's got that grappling base abilities. And Jake Matthews has not had success when he comes to the United States.
Yeah, I know he hasn't. Jake Matthews, definitely an underdog that, can pull off the victory here. He is 10-4 in the UFC. But Sean Brady is 3-0. Both guys are kind of like, they're pretty similar. It's like mirror images. Like they both have a similar game. You talk about good boxing for both of them, slight edge to Brady in that department. Good wrestling, slight edge to Brady in that department, but you never really know until these guys fight each other. Both Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts, so it'll be fun to see this fight. Like I'm excited to watch this fight, but from a DFS aspect, right? You get big scores in dominant performances. So in order for somebody to have a dominant performance, one guy's usually got to be pretty bad in one area, or a fighter's got to be able to take advantage of a weakness. And I don't really know if that's going to happen in this fight. Like I think it's going to be competitive. You can make a case for either one, but I do edge Brady. I think that Brady he's really good everywhere. I think that he's well prepared. And, I like the stable of fighters that Renzo Gracie Philly area has. I know Daniel Gracie, and I've trained with Daniel Gracie. I know those guys, and they are really, really talented. That's where Paul Felder originally came from. Like that stable of fighters is extremely strong. So I am favoring Brady in the matchup, but an upset here, it's priced like Brady's going to go in there and have no issues at all. I think it's closer than that, but I do favor Brady.
Yeah, the thing with Brady is I kind of want to see how we get to ownership when it comes to Saturday with him when we're talking about those 9,000 options, because I feel like he's going to be a guy that maybe people don't necessarily look at, so you might have a little bit a way of getting value there with Sean Brady. Next up, we got a female matchup. Liviana Souza taking on Amanda Lemos. Amanda 8,700, Liviana 7,500.
Gosh, man, I don't like this fight, and the reason I don't like this fight is because I feel like I'm going to get this fight wrong, and I'm up front with it, right? Like I feel like I'm going to get this fight wrong. When I initially heard about this fight, and I've seen the body of work, to be honest, I wasn't too familiar with Lemos. I've seen her fight, but I watch a lot of fights, and sometimes I forget until I actually put the face to the name. I have seen Liviana Souza. I do remember her, especially regionally. She had a lot of success regionally. 14-2 overall. You're talking about Lemos, who's 8-1-1. Both competitive, both good in all departments. If you have some knock on some fighters, right, you will say that Liviana Souza's output is minimal, 2.2 strikes per minute, so that's pretty low. In the UFC, she has not flashed the same success that she had regionally, okay, and that's the knock on her. But what's saying that she can't? What's saying that she can't go out there and have that performance? I mean, nothing really. We're talking about low-level women's MMA in this bout. A lot of people don't want to deal with the fight and don't want to touch it. So I definitely think that you could gain some leverage by targeting this fight. Just good luck getting it correct. I think that Lemos on the feet does look exceptionally better. She doesn't telegraph her shots as much. She puts extremely good combinations together, really impressive power. I worry about the grappling of Liviana Souza. And I understand, Liviana Souza is slightly smaller, an inch less in height, 2 inches in reach, but she does have an extensive judoka background and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background, both Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu aces. But, I think it's a lot closer than this fight, and I wouldn't hate a Souza upset, to be honest. Do you have a lean in this fight, Jason? Because honestly, I broke it down. And initially, I was favoring Souza. I watched some tape. I like what I saw from Lemos. And now I'm kind of caught in the middle where I'm going to have limited exposure to both. But obviously, because of the price point, I think the opportunity for Souza to have a good performance is a lot higher than Lemos at 8,700.
Yeah, I won't have much exposure to this fight. I mean, I do a lean towards Amanda in this one, but you bring up some great points about Souza, who's just about a 2-1 betting underdog as we do this show here on a Thursday evening. Of course, if you want to check out the odds, just go over to oddshopper.awesemo.com as you can see what the betting odds are for the fight, and you can sign up for free today to track your bets and receive alerts when the lines do move, when you're looking to get a line at a certain spot. There are some there are some prop bets that I do have stuck out to me. I'm interested to kind of see how they do it. And I've talked about this in terms of DFS. I think that, even if you're just a DFS player, you don't bet on the fights, looking at those betting lines can help you out because it can tell you where the public is going. You can see, where did the bookmaker open up that fight at and where has it gone to? It can really open your eyes a little bit to where the public thinks of a fight. So you got to check out that over there at oddshopper.awesemo.com. Also, be sure to check out the pin tweet over on our Twitter handle at awesemo_com. It's also in the YouTube chat to enter for our giveaway for a chance to win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Just click the link to enter and perform any task listed to gain more entries. This giveaway will run through 11:59 tonight. So good luck on that. We got some great tools and content. Of course, also get access to our premium Slack account, which can really help you out a lot. You got any questions there for Pete Rogers Jr.? Of course, if you're not subscribed to us here on YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know when the show is live here on the channel. Of course, as always, do appreciate the thumbs up there. That does help us out a lot as well. Let's move on to a fighter that I am very familiar with, and that is Elliott Cruz. Out of my hometown here of Tampa. He has actually been training in Vegas, and he's moving up to 155 pounds. Well, I talked to Julian Erosa last week after his win. He had said that when Cruz came out to Vegas and started training, he's like, I didn't know who he was. And he goes, I asked him, and I go, what weight do you fight? And he goes, 45. He goes, dude, you're massive. And very much Elliott Cruz is like you, Pete, a very, tall and lengthy fighter.
Yeah, Elliott Cruz, man, 6 feet, 78-inch reach. That reach is pretty wild. Longer reach than I have. Jason, you have some inside information on Elliott Cruz because he's in a very interesting spot here against Uros Medic, who comes from, a promotion where we don't really hold a lot of value and they don't really have the most talented fighter. I do think that Uros Medic, if you look at his tape, he's aggressive. He's impressive. Some submissions off of his back, some aggressiveness on the feet. But is there some potential here in Elliott Cruz pulling off this upset?
I think the key is, what does he look at 55? I mean, he did cut a lot of weight. I've been in the same room with Elliott Cruz. He's a big boy. I mean, you would sit there, if you walked to a room and you had no idea what weight class he's in, you would have thought, oh, that guy's a 45er, just like people walk into a room with you, like Pete fights at 40. Yeah, he made 45 at one point. He's not trying to hit that 146 on a scale anymore. But I mean, the thing is that, Elliott made the decision of, you know what, I'm going to go out to Vegas. Let me get around the PI. He's been working at Extreme Couture. So to me, it's just a lot of question marks. I mean, obviously based on what you see in the octagon, he hasn't fought in over a year now. So a lot of question marks there. I think it's, will I take some flyers on Elliott Cruz and GPPs? No question.
Yeah, I think it's warranted, right? Because there's so many unknowns surrounding Uros Medic, where you're talking about, the wrestling, the grappling. Yeah, he has submissions off of his back, but we haven't seen him face too much adversity in his career, and you don't know how a fighter's going to respond until they're under those bright UFC lights, getting cracked, and they're in vulnerable situations, right? We've seen fighters break before. I mean, think about Max Roshkov, right? He looked fine until he was under in the UFC and then broke. So I am still favoring Uros Medic because of the aggressiveness and how Elliott Cruz was, knocked out and finished against Spike Carlisle. So knocked down and finished, I should say. And I do think that, Uros Medic, my coach Greg was pretty impressed with him. And he's usually pretty good at spotting out some guys. So I do think that Medic has a slight edge here. It's just the price point, right? And there's so many unknowns. He could easily replicate that Spike Carlisle early KO and get rid of him quickly. But what happens if he doesn't get that early round 1 KO? How does he sustain pace over the remaining 2 rounds? We'll have to see. You could do worse than Elliott Cruz.
My heart says I want to pick Elliott Cruz, but my brain says something different there. We'll get our picks here momentarily. First fight of the night, we got Mario Bautista taking on Trevin Jones. Of course, Trevin Jones initially won his UFC debut, I should say. It was overturned to a marijuana test. Of course, Mario Bautista, he has shown his ability to finish fights here. So what's kind of your thoughts on this fight?
I mean, if you think about Trevin Jones, right? Trevin Jones was brought in to lose against Timur Valiev and did not lose. Should have lost. He was hit from pillar to post. The referee didn't step in. I mean, he was shelled up just, in the fetal position at one point, taking shot after shot. And we've seen worse stoppages than that. And I don't really see how you can dispute that. That fight should have been stopped, but it wasn't. Timur Valiev went out there a little reckless, started to really hunt for that finish. And the one thing about Trevin Jones is he's got a good counter shot and hit him clean with a counter shot, followed up some ground and pound. And if you look at Trevin Jones's highlight reel or his regional tape, you will know that when he hits people flush, he puts them away and he finishes them with some aggressive strikes, some sneaky submissions as well. But as far as Mario Bautista, I think Mario Bautista is pretty skilled. And I think that this is a fight that has decision written all over it, where Bautista can outclass him in all facets of the game, mix it up, avoid some damage, coming from a strong camp and MMA lab. You talk about City Kickboxing and the MMA lab might have a very successful Saturday night. And will we see both camps go, undefeated? We'll have to see. But I do think that for the large majority, they will be successful. And I do favor Mario Bautista. 9,100 price tag though for DFS. It's kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Sam asked if I was going to be all over the first fight of the night. I definitely prefer the Mario Bautista side of it, but Pete, I mean, look, at 9,100, I need to finish out of Mario Bautista for that price to pay off. I just, and particularly with this new DK scoring system of who Mario Bautista is, I feel like for him to be Othel at that price point, he's going to have to get a finish there. I want to get into Sam's, super chat question here. We kind of, get through these here pretty quickly. Top 2 cash.
Adesanya Nunes, if you can afford it.
Top 2 GPP.
Makhachev and Jan.
Top 2 live dogs.
Phillips. Is Tim Elliott still a dog technically? I hit 8,200 on DraftKings, so I guess not. It's weird, right?
Yeah, he's +1. He's +110 when I did the sheet.
Okay, so you get. I'll say Elliott, even though that's kind of a cop out right there.
Favorite top inside the distance.
Ulberg.
Top champion and MVP plays.
Ooh. Well, who are you thinking for the champion MVP play? That's an interesting call.
So I'm looking over at the Super Draft champions. I mean, look, I think it'd be easy to sit there and say, give me Adesanya at 1.8, give me Nunes 1.5.
Hard to get away from Nunes, man. It's hard to get away from Nunes.
Yeah. I mean, Peter Yan at 2.05, if he can keep it on the feet, I mean, and land the strikes, I think that one is an interesting one to me. As I kind of go down a little bit, maybe a Sean Bray's a sneaky one at 1.8 would be someone I would stick there. But like overall on the FanDuel side of things, I'm looking, someone like maybe a Makhachev. I mean, if you can afford to get Nunes at $23, I mean, that to me is the easy one.
I would agree with that. I mean, it's hard to dislike Nunes, right? Like you and I joked last week. We're like, will we see the first 10,000 fighter? I think we should have. I really think we should have.
Yeah. Let's go through our straight up fight picks. These are not DFS related, just our straight up fight picks. Main event. Give me Izzy.
Yeah, Adesanya.
Nunes, I think.
Nunes tied a million.
Jan Sterling.
I'm going Peter Yan.
Give me Aljo.
Oh, okay.
Makhachev Dober.
Makhachev.
I'm with you on that one. Santos or Rakic?
Santos.
Rakic.
Okay.
Cruz and Kenney. We're disagreeing here. This is kind of interesting. Cruz and Kenney.
I'm gonna say Kenney.
Give me Tom Cruz, man. We're going another one. Song Yadong, Kyle Phillips.
Phillips.
I agree with you on that one. Benavidez, Askarov.
Benavidez.
Give me Askarov.
Okay.
Cara France or Rogerio?
Cara France.
Same. Elliott, Espinosa.
God. Elliott.
Agree with you there. Ulberg or Nzechukwu?
Ulberg.
Same. Brady, Matthews.
Brady.
I'm with you on that one. Souza, Lemos.
I'll say Souza.
We'll go the other way. Medic, Cruz.
I'll go Medic.
I'm gonna go with my heart. Give me Alon Cruz.
There you go.
Gotta go with my hometown guy.
Yeah, you can't
Bautista Jones.
Bautista. And those are non-DFS related, just picks for fun, just to see how we're doing.
By the way, before he became a full-time fighter, Alon Cruz was a bag boy at Publix, which is the big grocery chain down here. So
hey man, I've had some pretty bad jobs too. A lot of people think like they hear professional fighter and they think it's a lot better than it is. It's really not.
Yeah, it's crazy. Of course, so we'll be back here on Saturday live before lock. I believe we're on at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So be here on Saturday for live before lock. Stay tuned for the NBA late slate sweat and swap with Spags and EMAC. That is coming up next. Thanks to Monkey Knife Fight for sponsoring the show. And make sure you head over to Awesemo.com for today's free content MMA ownership projections. We will talk to you on Saturday.